one big guy there. I'm not sure if the bigger ones are males, small ones are females, or if they're maybe the little ones are younger. I'm not sure. I don't know that much about crows. Do need to see what. No, I had to search that on YouTube, see what's here on crows. I know there was one that learned to talk. The lady was trying to teach a parrot or the bird that you normally think of being taught to speak, and it's amazing that they'll ask. It's almost looks like the birds actually understand, the English language, and almost like they understand what they're, what they're saying. That's amazing. If it's a critter with that small a brain could actually, they've taught, chimps sign language, or not. It's a use of their hands because they don't quite have the vocal cords. And I think I've heard that that's the one thing. Why we have high technology and chimps don't, is that we can communicate with each other, we can work together, and chimps really can't. Same thing with the great apes and stuff. Or that dolphins don't have hands. If dolphins had hands, they could be building stuff with high technology. That makes sense. I've heard that. That a number of critters are as intelligent and capable as we humans are, but if like I said, if dolphins had hands, they would be building stuff, but they don't have. They get flippers, and dolphins are not fish. Dolphins are air-breathing mammals, and one thing I find very, very sad. Now, if you remember the TV show, you have to be an old timer, but there's a show back in the 60s called Flipper. It was a dolphin that was the star of the show, but this dolphin had become so used to, so accustomed to human interaction. When the show ended, he was no longer getting that interaction. That he became so despondent. He just sank to the bottom of it. The pool they had him in. He sank to the bottom and let himself drown. Very, very sad. I'm thinking if someone had known that was you got to do that, they would have given him a little bit more attention. But I don't know. Well, a couple other things I want to cover. Now, do you ever have a dream where you're kissing somebody? I mean, really, really kissing them? And I'm not getting to who this is, but just she's a female I've commented on here on YouTube, or here on YouTube a few times. It may not be the person she thinks she is, but she's certainly willing to. If it excites her to think I'm kissing her, that's fine. She can come and kiss me for real. She's cute and interesting enough. Yeah, the theory. If you're with somebody in that type of intimate contact in your dreams, you're probably actually having some form of astral sex with them. At least I'd like to think that. And maybe she had the same experience. I mean, it probably did happen that way. I'll leave it at that. Another thing I want to cover now, if you watch Y-Files, that's another YouTube channel. That guy is really, really good. I really enjoy him because he approaches it. He tells a good story. And, actually talk about time slips, the last one I listened to. Time slips are very, very interesting. Now, there was a story that was in the National Enquirer back in the 70s. Yeah, I know the National Enquirer. If you remember that. I'll get to that in a second. But, you know what time slips. Now, there's a story, he didn't cover this one, but there was a story of two ladies that were in this building, somewhere in the eastern U.S. These ladies went down to the elevator. They wanted to go from like the third floor down to the first floor, the ground level, and elevator kept on going down to the basement. These ladies didn't think this building had a basement, but anyway, they ended up, the door opened, and there was this awful scene. It was a hospital scene from like the Civil War. These guys were using bone saws to amputate legs, arms and legs that have been shot. They couldn't just remove the bullet. They just have to remove the arm and leg, and they're doing all kind of horrific. And this one doctor is motioning to these two ladies, to come join them. And these two ladies are scared to death. So they, after a few minutes, they get the doors to close. Then they get back up to the ground floor and get out. And of course, these two ladies are pretty shaken. But Don't know if it's a true story, but that's a good tale. It is time slips. I've never had anything, but there's all kind of time slips and people that will suddenly be driving. Let's say 2 or 3 stories of a pilot of a small aircraft, and we'll find a strip. He had no idea it's there. It's not on his aviation maps. He'll land. There's nobody around. But there's a building there. Something mechanical with the airplane that he's able to borrow some tools from this old shed. But the tools look like they're from the 40s. This building looks like it's everything doesn't look that old, but it just looks like it's way out of date. And after a couple hours, this guy's able to refill his airplane from the aviation fuel there. Like I said, there's nobody around, but the place just looks like it's maybe 30, 40 years at a time. It takes off again. Then after a couple of months, he said, "Hey, I wonder if that if that old field is down there." He looks down there and there's didn't drop down real low, but he sees like it's a Walmart or some other retail establishment. And he said, "Well, what the hell?" About where he thought that old structure was. Did he go back in time? Did he just land at a different spot than where he thought he was? Who knows? Now the story of the National Enquirer. This is printed back in the 70s. My mother. They had read headlines, on the very front of the page, very front of the newspaper, go like, woman gives birth, or I saw Bigfoot, or which is not that bizarre story, but they would give stories like woman gives birth to three-headed green alien baby. They would really run stories like that back in the 70s. I told my mother, I said, "You really believe those?" And she goes, "Well, it's printed right in black and white. It's got to be true." But anyway, I'm not sure if she believed it or not. I don't know, but she might have been having fun with me. But anyway, now there was a story printed in the National Enquirer. There's 2 or 3 stories that I found interesting, but there was one. This guy was leaving the service and going to this town. It was somewhere in the east, I think. Maybe San Francisco, but it was a town here in the U.S. This guy visits this. He's on leave. He goes through this town. He notice all the buildings look like they're way out of date, but they're not run down. They just look like they're maybe 30 or 40 years ago. And he meets this lady. Let's call her Jane. Him and Jane have a good time. And after the couple of weeks of his leave from the service is over, he talked to Jane. He said, "Look, I got 6 more months of my tour of duty. At that time we'll be finished. I'll come back. We'll visit you. Maybe we can make plans for the future." So Jane said, "Yeah, that would be great." So he goes after 6 months. He returns, and asked around, and nobody. Everything. The area where he was at is all run down. It's all dirty, and everything's all falling apart. And nobody knows who Jane was or is. And and finally he finds this real old man. Yeah, he gives it Jane. Let's call it Jane Smith, just for a sake of argument. The old man goes, "Yeah, well, I'd met her a couple of times. I knew her, but she died about 20 years ago. She died of an old woman. She died of old age." Was it made up to make an interesting story? Was it? Did it time travel? Was she a ghost? Who knows? Another story that was in the National Enquirer. This was probably true, but I think this was in New York or Chicago. This guy, it was a real rainy, muddy day, and this guy's tire, break through the pavement, and he notice there's a hole down there, and they dig a little bit. They notice there's some type of room, under the street, and of course they dig it out, big enough for somebody to get down there. This guy, another guy, dropped down in this building. They found out it's left over from the speakeasy days, from the times of Prohibition, and because everything's a bit dusty and kind of out of date and stuff, and he goes through, he finds these stairs, and it leads up to, he opens this door, it opens up into a bar, and this bartender's looking at me and goes, "I've been working there for 10, 15 years. I never knew what that door was. It's always been locked. I just never went in there." The guy explained to him, "Well, that's a room left over from Prohibition days, man." That one's probably true. That one's interesting. But why files? Yeah, that guy's interesting. That guy is interesting is in the fact that he tells a good story and then he says, "But is it true?" So now all we got is second-hand account to this story, and probably not true. I'd like to believe it, but it's probably not true. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.